This is a Pioneer CLD 909 LaserDisc player. LaserDisc launched in 1978 and used a 12-inch optical disc to provide analog video and digital audio, almost 20 years before the arrival of DVD. I love this format, and for me at the time it represented the very pinnacle of home entertainment. So on today's Retro Tech Repair, I'm trying to fix this Pioneer CLD 909 LaserDisc player that I bought spares or repair on eBay. So I have here a LaserDisc player, and this particular model has a number of features that make it very appealing to me. Firstly, it's made by Pioneer, and the reasons why that's important will become clear in a few minutes. Also, it is an NTSC and PAL player, which means it will play NTSC discs from the US market, but also, importantly, PAL discs that I would get over here in the UK. So it turns out this model doesn't play PAL discs, but NTSC is what I really need. To support that, it's dual voltage also, so it has 240 volts as well as 120 volts capability, and perhaps most importantly of all, it has on the back of it this port, which is labelled I/O. And again, all will become clear as to why that's important to me in the fullness of time. There is a problem though. Of course, it doesn't work. And it takes up a lot of space on my bench, so apologies for the jaunty camera angles here as I take a look at it. Let's power it up and see what it does. Well, that's not too bad to start with. See if we can open it up. That's not great. I suppose the good news is we do have a live display on the front here. Obviously there is power going to the unit, but it's making some pretty unpleasant noises. Obviously there's a mechanical problem, the tray doesn't properly eject. Yeah, we better open this one up and see what's going on inside. And power on. Okay, well, if we don't provoke it by trying to eject, it seems okay. Power off and power on. Now let's try eject. And that seems to be when it starts to run into problems. One place you won't run into problems though is ordering from the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. Because ordering from them is easy. Simply upload your designs to their website and have high quality printed circuit boards in your hands within a few days. And you don't have to stick to the boring greens and browns that Pioneer chose, because PCBWay do a range of colours for their printed circuit boards, including red, yellow, blue, white, black, and even purple. And it's not just PCBs. PCBWay offer a range of services including CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication and injection molding. There's a dedicated link in the video description, so if you haven't visited the website before, or even if you have, I'd be grateful if you took a look and supported the channel today, and I'd like to thank PCBWay for their kind sponsorship. Now, let's get back to the repair. And it looks like our problem is somewhere here. So I wonder if I can move this tray by hand, or this mechanism by hand, and yeah, it will come. Let's try that. That's it. Will it go any further than that? No, doesn't seem to want to go any further than that. Looking at the mechanism at the side of the unit, I'm not convinced the tray is supposed to eject any further than it does, because it looks to be at the end of its travel. Perhaps if you have had one of these players and you remember, you could leave a comment in the comment section as to whether this is behaving as it should. The source of our noise, though, seems to be this mechanism which moves the laser across the disc. So I'm going to try to get a better look at that. Okay. Oh well. Oh dear. I think I may have. That was not a good thing. That was not a good thing. So there were two springs here holding these down, but I seem to have kind of overstretch those now, and about to do the same at this end too. So those things are kind of beyond their, stretched beyond their limit. Perhaps I can replace them with a band or something, I don't know, or some different springs. I don't know if they will compress back. Maybe they will. But it's not all bad news. This CLD 909 plays both LaserDiscs and CDs, and the thing that I have broken is the disc clamp for the CDs. I don't intend to use this valuable and fragile player to play compact discs, and so this part was largely redundant anyway. So I forget about the CD clamp for a bit and turn my attention to the laser sled, which seems to be making all the noise. Let's power it up again, see what goes on. Aha! So I think it's this has been kind of raised too far and it's not sliding on this wheel, but then when I push it down, it will. Let's try that again. Seems happier. Okay, well this should be in situ now. It doesn't seem to be, of course. It seems to have stopped making that noise. That's good. Let's see if we can put this back in place. For testing purposes, I'm going to replace the springs that I overstretched with some elastic bands. This should enable me to carry on testing, and I'll replace the springs with something more appropriate in the future. With elastic bands in place and the laser sled moved to a sensible position, things seem to have improved slightly. But there doesn't seem to be any attempt to read the disc. Let's try it with a LaserDisc again. There we go. Just wants to kind of jump up there. So I think some of what is happening here is that the same laser that reads the LaserDisc also reads the CD. And to do that, it needs to be in a different position within the player. I'm therefore speculating that perhaps this machine spent more time playing compact discs than it did LaserDiscs, and because of this, the section of plastic gear where the laser would be when it's usually playing a compact disc is more worn than the section of plastic gear that's in use when it's playing a LaserDisc. And because there isn't a significant overlap between the two areas, perhaps if I only play LaserDiscs on this machine, then I won't encounter the problem at all. Now at some point in the future I might be able to fix this more permanently, but for the time being, maybe I just don't use this player to play CDs. Okay, will it play? No, as soon as you press play, it just ejects. But unfortunately, it won't play LaserDiscs either. So I think what I'd really like to do is I'd like to know whether this laser is trying to focus or not, and whether or not there's any light output from it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell that unless there's a disc present in the machine. Even then I can't really see. So at this point then, maybe it's worth referring to the manufacturer's documentation, and I managed to find online both a service manual and a LaserDisc repair guide. So then, our LaserDisc repair guide has a handy troubleshooting section. This is just one page of it, referring to only one of a series of different players. But the series that it's referring to is the LD707 series, and our player, the CLD 909, is apparently part of the 707 series. And in our problem description here, one of the problems it describes is no play, laser doesn't light up, the tray's ejected a few seconds after play key is depressed. That seems to be the problem we're having. The countermeasure, as it describes it, is to replace D9 on the SRVB, which I keep calling the servo board. Whether that's actually what it is or not, I don't know. The cause is simply described as D9 failure, and the remarks section says when play key is depressed, the base of Q15 on SRVB doesn't become 5.6 volts. Then power can't be applied to the laser diode. Now, according to the service manual, D9 is a 5.6 volt Zener diode. But if you're anything like me, you're just going to be distracted by the fact that I filmed some of this footage against a grey background and the other part of the footage against the other side of my mat, which is brown. But I promise you these are my hands and I am about to test the diode. So now we have D9 free of the board. I've clipped one leg of it into my new multifunction tester, and I'm going to pop the other leg on there and we'll test it. Now, if it's faulty, it probably won't show as being a 5.6 volt Zener, which would be good news because that would mean that was probably at least one of the faults on our board. If it is a Zener and it tests correctly, then we need to look elsewhere for the problem. So let's see what it's going to do. Oh. So it looks like D9 is a perfectly functioning 5.6 volt Zener diode. Now I wonder if that's left me in a grey mood or a brown one. Oh, brown. I'm not sure that's the best choice. And speaking of bad choices, at this point I decided to do the perhaps inevitable but rather frowned upon a laser pot tweak. The laser pot tweak is a way of adjusting the current to the laser diode by adjusting a potentiometer on the laser head. It's often regarded as being a last-ditch attempt to rescue a failing laser, and considered likely to accelerate its failure. Stick with it though, because although I'm trying it right now, I do show some alternatives later in the video which are probably less harmful. But if you'd like to leave a comment before seeing that footage, please do, because I am told that all engagement with the video is good for the algorithm. You'll note here that I've removed the entire drive mechanism, including the motor, the sled and the laser. But I didn't show the process of removing this on the video because it transpired to be completely unnecessary, and all you actually need to do is to push the laser sled to a position where you can reach the pot from the rear of the unit. I carefully turned the pot in one direction, a barely perceptible amount, and I tried it to see if it made a difference. It didn't, but rather than turn it some more, I turned it back the other way by a similar, barely perceptible amount, and then tried again. Alright, I'm going to stop it right there. But all is not well, and I've intentionally muted the audio here and blurred the video to avoid getting a copyright strike, but essentially the player keeps playing the same 2 or 3 seconds of video over and over again. So having done what the internet hates and performed a laser pot tweak, I decided to do what the internet loves and start recapping things. And I decided to start with the power supply because I thought that having a stable power supply would be valuable for the unit overall. So here's our board. I didn't buy a cap kit for this, so I'm just going to have to recap it with caps that I have in stock. I also decided to replace only the smaller caps because I felt that these larger bulk caps were unlikely to fail. So here then is our recapped power supply board and a handful of capacitors that I replaced. There's one cap I didn't have an equivalent for, that's this one here. But all of the rest of them are done, apart from these bulk caps. I tested those are fine. I also tested this one. This was fine, and in fact, I tested everything that came out, and they all tested good too, although the performance of the ones that went in is better than these that came out in terms of ESR and so on. So, whether it'll make a difference or not, I don't know, but we'll get this now back into the machine. Next on my recapping journey then is the servo board. This time I did order specific capacitors from a local electronics supplier with reference to the Pioneer service manual. However, when I went to do the recap, I discovered that the servo board that I had was different to that which was described in the manual, and consequently the values of capacitors were different too. So again, I wasn't able to completely recap the board, and for some I had to use components that I already had in stock. So that's our servo board now, almost completely recapped, and I'm surrounded by discarded electrolytic capacitors. Every single one of these I tested when it came off, and every single one tested good. I didn't have quite all of the parts that I needed because the schematic and parts list that I had was from a different board or a different version of the board. So there's a couple of smaller caps on here that I didn't have, all 1 microfarad. I tested all of those, they all tested good, so it's almost completely a recapped board. I think I've wasted my time and I've wasted my money, and the performance of this board is going to be exactly the same when I put it back in the machine. So let's take a look. Well, it turns out that I was wrong. and after some adjustment of the focus tracking on the servo board, I was able to readjust the laser potentiometer back to its original position. Now there are still issues with the machine, and you can see here on a blank screen that there is distortion across the top of the picture. And this distortion becomes really evident on static displays with straight lines. Leave the machine to warm up for an hour though, and the story is quite different. The player is much quicker at identifying the start of a disc and starting playing, and the distortion across the top of the screen has now gone. That though is a problem for another day, and I expect that you'll be seeing this player on the channel again before too long. So what then makes this particular model of Pioneer LaserDisc player so significant? Well, you might recall at the start of the video I drew your attention to a port on the rear of the unit. And perhaps most importantly of all, it has on the back of it this port, which is labelled I/O. So here is that port again, this time in focus, and here is my Pioneer Palcom MSX computer. You'll see that it too has a similar port, and my hope is to connect the two together and play this, Astron Belt, on LaserDisc, at home. Now there are some technical challenges to this, not least that this is a PAL MSX and will not process an NTSC video signal, but Astron Belt home release was only ever available on NTSC. So even if I can get the two machines to talk to each other, it's no guarantee that I'm ever going to be able to get to play this game, but nonetheless, it's something to aspire to. That does just about wrap it up though for our Pioneer CLD 909 for today. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and that if you have, you'll hit like and subscribe. And until next time, I'd just like to thank you so much for watching Retro Tech Repair. And off we come with the lid.